Hey everybody, and welcome to my analysis of Clapham versus Ranelagh. This is part 3. Clapham have just taken half, 8-7. They score this offence without turning over. Ranelagh coming down, forcing middle. Horry with the big fake there, keeping the separation. Horry gets the disc here, and he sets his feet without committing to anything. She's just like in the neutral position ready. And then Horry puts in the shoulder fake like that, and that sends the defender out to the side to get that much separation just with dropping the shoulder. Really efficient. He could maybe throw and go with the lefty backhand out of this to kind of use the separation that he's got, get the disc back in his hands, and maybe then Briggs would come under on the near sideline. So the force middle from Ranelagh, they cheat across here a little bit. You see the force is coming over to the left. Abrams is able to then break it, go to Mead, who then puts it in the end zone for Ollie Gordon. Let's have a look at that again. So when the disc goes over to Horry here, he releases it in 0.6 seconds on the half pivot, punishing that force just for being a step off. When Abrams has it here, he sees the force cheating over, and he takes a half step and looks over the force's shoulder. Mead reacts to that immediately. So you see Mead is in the middle, and he sees Abrams do the look over the shoulder, and then he immediately sees, oh yeah, there's space there. So then he goes for that. Let's look at the timing from Ollie Gordon. So Ollie's changing direction just after the disc is released. Yeah, so the moment he sees that disc go up, Ollie is then planting his feet and he's going deep. So it's good timing from Ollie Gordon. I'm really not sure about this one-hand catch though. Like, that's a bit sketchy. If we look again at Abrams here, he gesticulates, and then here's where he does the peek over the shoulder. So the force doesn't know whether to commit to this or not. Like, if they jump over to the right, he can still just throw the flick. He hasn't committed to the pivot out to the backhand. He looks up, and when he sees Mead then makes the move, that's when he then steps over. He releases the disc before his non-pivot foot goes down, and before his pivot foot lifts off the ground, so it's not a travel. And after releasing the disc, he's already running, so he would be available for a return pass if it was needed. Mead here, I love the high clap catch, right? Clap catch, super safe. Getting it up high, still really safe. Requires a lot of strength to kind of consistently do that, get up high and get the clap catches in.
Timing beats speed. Accuracy beats power.
So the first thing I noticed is some communication downfield. It looks like they're trying to figure out where to set up in horizontal. When McNamara throws this lefty, the catcher turns 360 degrees. So he's catching it there, and McNamara is like free coming forwards, and it would be good to pass back to him. Has enough time to be able to turn 360 and actually pop it back to him, but it might have been easier to not turn 360 and turn 0 degrees instead. McNamara, we see here, his momentum has got him up to Hillman, which means it's easier to break the force. And they winds up the lefty backhand, which you have to kind of respect. Slots it through with that. So his lefty backhand is really making a big difference in this point. After this catch, there's a nice continuation cut. It's really important to keep the disc moving once you've got it past that line of defenders. And Micklem fakes deep and comes under for the easy one. But then hard pivots out to the side, right? So he's turned outwards here. If we look again, after catching, all of his teammates are over this way, but he turns completely out to the side. Now he's facing 180 degrees away from all of his teammates. And then the pivot, which kind of, directs your balance and shows your intentions, is completely 180 degrees away from all his teammates. So that's immediately kind of put him in a bad position. The defense know they don't have to mark an immediate threat from anyone, and they just need to cover that big deep shot instead. The fake comes quite early, and then he hard pivots back away. So this pivot here is actually like over 180 degrees. So he's gone from one extreme to the other, where he should just face inwards and chill. There's good defense here from Webster on Feely to stop the obvious infield cut and force that miscommunication. Felix Martin with a good poach. After the turnover, Clapham just get the disc moving really quickly, just passing to whoever's open. Funk has it here, and he doesn't delay. He doesn't stop the flow too much. He finds the open pass behind him rather than just looking downfield for something to develop. McHale here sees Mariano cutting under, fakes the flick, and then steps over and fakes the backhand to Ben Funk. So let's have a look at that again. Mariano's cut maybe doesn't have enough separation. The flick comes. Funk realizes that the deep timing is off, so he needs to come under to the far side. McHale fakes that as well because the defender is so tight. So it's good defense to stop those options. And the fact that McHale has now faked a couple of times means he's a bit disconnected from his teammates, because then when Connor tries to find the next option, they're marked out by Feely. He throws this lead pass. Mariano might have been able to run that down. and then Connor gets it again. He sees Funk and rips it to the end zone. Looks like there's a lot of separation there, so let's look again. When Modiano's got the disc, Funk actually points for the disc to go back to McHale. McHale looks downfield, gets eyes with Funk. Funk starts going, Murphy starts going, but then Connor like half steps, and I think that stops Murphy from following through with this poach. Let's look again at the timing of that. So Connor starts stepping over, Murphy sees it, he's turning, he's going to go for the poach, but then Connor hesitates, and you see Murphy pulls out of that poach during that hesitation. And then Connor maybe sees that the poach has stopped and therefore puts the disc out. I mean, it was a good poach. It was a really good throw as well, so it's not guaranteed that the poach would have had a bid. But it was a well-timed poach, and he had to make that split-second decision whether to stick with it or whether to pull out, decide to pull out, and Connor hadn't committed to the throw, so he was able to punish that.
And there's McHale shooting to the end zone. Funk is free for the score.
At this point, Ranelagh come out again with their vertical stack, switching from the horizontal that they tried out last point. Clapham send down the two handler marks, managed to mark out the ISO off the front of the stack this time. The rest of the stack being surrounded, which limits Ranelagh's options, forces them to pass it backwards for the first pass, which is a win for the defense. Then the disc goes up deep. It's Alcock versus Bogan-Carey. Bogan-Carey makes the catch with the left hand. He thinks it's in, they discuss it, and it's not in. If we have a look at the catch again, we can see Bogan-Carey going up, catching with his left hand, which means that he's got his right shoulder kind of in between Alcock and the disc, gives him a little bit more space to work with. Wonder if Alcock had gone up with his left hand, then he would have had a better bid on this, not having to rotate and reach over with his right. You can see from the landing here that he's not in. So they check the disc in at the front of the end zone, and all the Ranelagh players are free in the backfield, so he's able to just pass it across the end zone for the goal. Let's have a look again at why those players are free. So this is the last frame that we can see of the field before the camera changes and the disc is checked in. And you can see Connor is pointing to where players should be, Mead's pointing, nobody's ready. And then if we play, we can see the disc is checked in very quickly afterwards. And then the next thing we see is the Ranelagh players all running and free, and all the Clapham players, well, half the Clapham players not running at all. So basically what happened there was Alcock checked the disc in before his team were ready, and that meant that they can't bring the disc back because it was Clapham's decision to check the disc in, and so therefore Ranelagh are free in the end zone for an easier goal than it should have been. This point starts fairly well from Clapham, with Mead here bouncing the disc back, doing a little bit of dribbling, able to find that continuation. Wilson kind of auto fakes, doesn't really get the defenders biting in. And then Clapham move the disc around all right, but flow is kind of intermittent. All the players are catching the disc, kind of moving backwards into the backfield. I'd like to see a lot more kind of penetration moves where people are trying to throw and then move forward to catch the disc, rather than pass it to someone cutting under and then clearing out. The flow stops here with Wilson. He puts it up deep, but it's a bad throw, lots of float, and Ranelagh are able to bring it down. So let's have a look again at that decision to throw. Wilson looks infield and sees the deep cut from Long. He puts the disc up. At that moment of release, McCreary over at the back here should have covered that deep cut a little bit better. Long is going deep for quite a long time, and McCreary should see this and peel off. But he waits until the disc is actually in the air before he follows it. If it was a good throw, it'd still be complete, and if McNulty wasn't there, then Long probably would have still got it. After the block, then Ranelagh moved the disc nice and quick. Throw and go here to get the shoulder in front of the defense, get immediately on the attack. Flow stops, not able to make that pass. There's a poach from Mead, which we'll look at a bit closer after the point. Wilson comes in with another poach, and then there's an inside break here past Abrams, which opens the field up somewhat. Clapham in a little bit of disarray, but open pass is not being hit by Ranelagh. Then the disc moves backwards, and there's a good deep cut from Keenan. McCreary with the flick huck for the goal, going past Ashio. If we look again, we can see Ranelagh's initial flow here being stopped by a poach from Mead. So the undercut happens going towards that space, but Mead has spotted it, and he goes in to cover that, and the cutter realises and pulls out. Now at this point, Mead and Wilson should switch. They're in the perfect kind of bracket shape, and Mead's guy is just running past Wilson, but Mead recognises Wilson hasn't seen it, so then he has to turn the boosters on and go and catch up. Wilson has been watching the thrower, trying to figure out what the thrower is going to throw, and sees that swing option, so then he commits to that And if this throw is not a good one, then Wilson's got a good chance of getting this. Abrams reacts immediately. He doesn't, chase after the disc. He immediately turns to find the next mark. But then slight problem with Abrams' positioning here, where he just doesn't check in with the disc. At this point, Ford is also letting his guy go deep. He's seen that Ash Yo is at the back, so he's relying on him to cover. Abrams gets done with that throw just when he's not looking. Then there's a free player on the far side as Ash has to switch to cover Justin's mark going deep. But that throw is not thrown. It's a lot of space over there, maybe like a hammer over the top. For some reason that pass isn't made, but it's all right. They turn around, they put the disc back in the hands of their strongest throwers, and then you see a cut here. This is the scoring cut, and Justin commits hard on the underneath, relying on Ash to pick up the deep, and it's not a bad switch, it's not a bad bit of cover, but the throw is just perfect out to the space.
Very, very well, but he is flanked by a team that is all there in spirit. Keenan shoots the break rocket. Oh, they're actually starting to get a bit of hacky sack going. That would intimidate me if I was Clapham.
In this point, Ranelagh come down again with their forced middle. Clapham run their play where three players go deep from the near side here, and Ollie Gordon cuts right the way across the field. He does get the disc and is able to squeeze it between these defenders to go to McHale. McHale finds Ash Yo coming under. Ash catches and releases so quickly and keeps his momentum going across the field. He's got separation, he's free, but there's a pick which stops the play. This comes back in, and Clapham are all quite far away on the far side there. McHale's throw to the space, Briggs has to lay out and save it. He doesn't waste any time faking to that throw down the line. Instead passes infield, and that's what sets off the motion across the field. Mead then drops the knee to throw for the goal. I like the technique to get this throw off, shoulder shimmy, and then drop down. And it's a great catch from Hillman to make it a score. Another look here at Briggs' layout to save McHale's pass. A lot of players here, when they look up and see Ford cut into that front corner, would step out and fake that flick at least, if not throw it. But because he doesn't waste time doing that, he just steps infield and Ash is free there, then he's able to keep the disc moving a lot quicker, keep the defenders on the back foot. Ash again with the quick catch and throw, stopping the defenders from being able to kind of set at all. McHale, the continuation over to Mead, and then they've got options, but there's also space in the end zone. They've moved the disc over laterally, which means they can attack the far corner. I do like that drop knee, and then it's a really great catch from Hillman. This point sees the first out of bounds pull for the entire game. McHale's big backhand just fades out of the side of the end zone, so it's bricked. Ranelagh run practically exactly the same play that Clapham ran in the last point. This appears to be like the play. Horizontal stack, three people go deep, one player goes across. The offense then zigzags against the forced middle, which is kind of ideal. Lots of big spaces. Murphy then right at the back corner with this catch. It's really close. You can see McHale here going for the VAR sign. I was actually doing the production for this game, showing the replays and deciding where the cameras and stuff go. We decided to put this camera up high, zooming in, which meant we got all of the far sideline shots really well. You can see the line here really clearly. Murphy lays, he toes, and his leg kind of slides along the ground as he's making the catch. If we look again, you can see he's flying through the air. His right foot comes down. His knee goes down, but it's still inbounds, and he hasn't quite got the disc. At this point, he's touching the disc, and he's almost touching the line. Then at this point, he's got the disc. His left hand now comes into play and maybe touching the ground. So he could have done a bit better here, to be honest. It doesn't need his hip to be touching the ground. It doesn't need his left hand to be there. But I think it's in incredibly close, both in time and space. The players go to the camera. I'm in the background there, running it through frame by frame for one player from each of the teams to see, and they decide that it was indeed inbounds. You can see the ripple of communication here. Ranelagh initially signaling in, Mead signaling in, and then the ripple of people signaling it in going across the field. I think it's really cool that cameras are able to be used like that to assist with the self-officiation of the game. From the other angle, frame by frame, you can see the leg coming down. Let's have a look at the left hand. It's coming down. Yeah, it's very difficult to tell whether that left hand hits before control of the disc. It's possible it does, but it's within 1/25th of a second, so impossible to call. In this point, Ranelagh's D seems to be straight up to begin with, but then they're definitely forcing towards the camera later on in the point. They flash to like stop the upline shots on the near side as well, and Clapham are able to punish that a couple of times. There are two really nice open side breaks, so the force seems to be to the line here. Justin fakes him out and then throws the backhand across to Ash, which is devastating for the Ranelagh defense, but they regain. They don't allow any quick movement after that catch. Horry catches the disc on the far sideline. He generates the score here by attacking after throwing. Disc goes to Ashio, who then does another kind of open side break throw to Horry, who's now free in the end zone. If we look again, we can see Horry here after throwing, going around the back of McCreary and getting separation. The force here checks over their shoulder after Ash catches to see whether there's an immediate threat, but probably doesn't look around far enough to see Horry being free. And there's no shout from McCreary. Clapham scoring 21 passes here, so I think McCreary might just be a bit tired from having to follow Horry around for that length of time. And then one of the small things that Ashio does well, which makes a really big difference, is directing his balance infield after catching. This opens more options for immediate threats, so he's able to hit the inside pass despite slipping. If he had just pivoted outwards, then the defender would have been able to stop it and he'd have to look elsewhere. Ranelagh receive the pull and they run the play. This time the cut across coming from the near side and the other player's going deep. And the disc this time goes to the deep cutters. Maybe Clapham aren't quite respecting that, thinking it's just a play and it's not actually going to result in a goal. But Corcoran doesn't hesitate to throw the assist to Deavy. Ranelagh scored this in 3 passes, as opposed to Clapham's last point, which was scored in 21 passes. So that's good for their stamina, but also really demoralising for Clapham, having had to work so hard for the last offence and then just being punished for being a few steps off on the set play deep cut. Frustration there from Conor McHale. This point starts with Ranelagh pulling out of bounds for their first time in this game. Abrams bricks the pool, and Clapham have created a huge space here. Big spaces end up being the problem for them in this offence. There's a great poach from the far side from Ranelagh, recognising that that's the big space to attack. Disc goes out wide to Ford. Another big space on the near sideline. Lots of Clapham players come across at the same time. And then Abrams has a huge space on the far side, and that disc just goes up too high. Let's have a look again. When Ford has it, the big space draws in all these Clapham players. There's no immediate options. And then when Abrams gets it, again, no immediate options for quick continuation, short passes, safe passes. Ash is cutting on the far side. The throw has to be a little bit further than is comfortable. Yeah, he should complete it. And yes, maybe Yo should read it and get up and get this. But ultimately, the big spaces there are what leads to the turnover. Ranelagh have the chance to go level at 12-12. And they don't hesitate putting another flick into the end zone for the goal. If we look again, McNamara should really catch this D instead of batting it to the ground with both hands. But he picks it up nice and quickly and looks to get it moving, hits the quick up line, and then the deep shot goes to like no separation, just trusting the receiver. He's like level with Abrams and trusting their throw as well, which is pinpoint. Ranelagh then go 12-12. At this point, Ranelagh come out with super aggressive defense around the disc. There's immediately like multiple layout bids, once on the force here. Then there's a poach, comes in, tries to get the disc. They switch, they manage to cover the deep. Another layout bid here on Ashio. Ash is able to punish that by throwing going, and then McHale puts the disc up too high for Ollie Gordon. Let's have a look at that again. The layout D here is punished perfectly by Yo. Instead of turning and looking downfield, he throws, gets running, gets separation. At this point, McHale has probably seen that Yo could get the return pass, but when he looks up, Ollie Gordon cuts under on the far side. So perhaps when Connor sees the space, he scans across and sees then Ollie is on the far side and actually makes the throw for Ollie. But because he's made that decision super late, because he was originally going to throw to Ash Yo, that's why the throw is a little bit sketchy. I find this particularly interesting because it's the difference between return pass flow, i.e. hitting Ash again here and just working with what they know and what they're building upon, and linear continuation flow, which is more traditional, where the disc moves between different players' hands and you look to continue the flow of the disc rather than bouncing it between players. After the D is caught, Justin comes in and floors McNamara pretty brutally. Knowing Justin, and anyone that knows Justin will confirm that there's no way that this is anything more than just a miscalculation on his part. The disc is checked back in. Well, it's not quite checked back in, but it's near enough. And Justin here sees the opportunity for a poach, comes under, and it's a close beard. He sticks his back leg out, the flick goes up, it's floaty, bounces off the hands, and Ranelagh clean up the trash with that. If we look again on this catch, Ash runs right the way around McNamara and goes up, gets his hand to the disc here early, gets the D, but then the disc comes down and Briggs is in no position to get the follow-up. So it's caught by Devey, who is playing for the Mac. Briggs is actually in no position here to get the D in the end because of an empathy jump. We can see when players want their teammate to jump, they all jump at the same time. You can see all the Clapham players here put in a little hop, but obviously Briggs is too close to the disc to warrant doing that, and he should be playing for the Mac, just like Devey is. If we look one more time, we can see the bid here from Ford, and then sticking his back foot out and see the contact with the disc here. You can see the shadow and just his laces catching the disc. Putting the wobble on it means it goes floaty. Ash with a really good D, ready to run around and get the block. Devey has positioned himself well to get the deflection, but I've never seen an empathy jump have such an effect on the outcome of game. And then there's a frame here which sums up the feelings for both teams at the moment in this game. Clapham with 2 unforced errors in a row, meaning that Ranelagh are able to take the lead 13-12, and we'll rejoin this game in part 4 after the timeout. If you'd like to get early access to that video and join our community, you can access the Discord through our Patreon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.